I don't know if you know this, but Justin calling an early election was a blessing. Why? Because something really bad almost happened to Canadian social media and would have fundamentally altered the landscape for users and for creators. Bill C-10, a fundamental assault on our freedom of speech, passed the House of Commons but didn't clear the Senate before the dissolution of Parliament. The bad news? The bill can be reintroduced in a couple of months, and we need to make this a campaign issue. Part of what the government wants to do is force platforms to promote quote-unquote good Canadian content at the top of our homepage. Seems innocuous enough, why should I care? At the best, it implies the government thinks Canadian YouTubers need help getting promoted, as if Canadian content is bad. But this is the best case scenario, a little bit of protectionism. I may benefit after all. But going down one layer, we see the first problem. Imagine a government committee deciding what type of content should be promoted based on the subject matter. At best, it puts Canadian creators like myself in a position of having to choose between creating the content the government wants us to make in order to increase our exposure, or to create the content we genuinely want to make and risk finding ourselves buried underneath everybody else who is playing ball. After all, if users have to scroll a long way to reach your content, because you're not making the content the government thinks you should be making, then growing your channel will be very difficult. But this is not as bad as it gets. Let's dive a little deeper. Let's say the government decides that certain content is no longer patriotic enough. They can stop promoting your content and instead put up content of a different political flavor. How? Well, let's say a party wants to restrict gun sales, allow more abortions, and increase immigration to Canada. All they have to do is decide that gun rights, abortion restrictions, and immigration restrictions aren't Canadian values. Now all the pro-gun, anti-abortion, and anti-immigration videos will be buried underneath the good patriotic views. If you're listening to this and thinking, yeah, I don't like guns, I'm pro-choice, and I love immigration, what is the issue here? This sounds like good news. Well, what happens if the other side gets in power? All of a sudden your newsfeed and suggested videos will be spammed with gun rights and pro-life content as well as anti-immigration rants. Will you then change your mind about the government having so much power? As long as the government can decide what content can be plastered at the top of your newsfeed, it can be abused. The way to keep government influence out of social media is not to let them in the first place. The second major point against Bill C-10 is similar to the first. The law would give the government the power to regulate the content of social media under the guise of patrolling for hate speech and other objectionable content. While some of these provisions have been modified in the House and the Senate was considering its own amendments, the fact remains that the same government whose Twitter posts have been flagged as manipulated wanted to give themselves the power to remove fake news and hate speech. Now, I am not in favor of hate speech, of course, and I understand that a lot of free speech activists just want to say horrible things. To counter this, social media giants have been cracking down on questionable content for years now, to the point that it has become controversial. For example, they censored a lot of topics surrounding COVID, like whether it was leaked from a lab, only to later decide to allow the content back on the platforms when it emerged that the theory was at least possible, although still far from proven, and not a fringe crackpot theory. But now imagine handing this power over to a government and to politicians with their own ambitions. Imagine that whoever is in charge gets to censor their opponent's lies. After all, every single politician and their fervent supporters lie. The only difference is that when your side lies, it's called hyperbole to make a point. Only your opponents lie. While the government won't censor content creator by creator, they could simply decide that a certain topic is banned and let social media companies do the censorship to avoid facing fines. After a change in power, Black Lives Matter could go from being promoted content to censored for promoting violence. Or the opposite. Blue Lives Matter could go from gracing your homepages to being taken down for hate speech. Now the government responds by saying that the regulator in charge of enforcing these rules, the CRTC, is independent, so we have nothing to fear. However, the CRTC's rules can be overridden by Cabinet, a power they have wielded in the past, and commissioners are also appointed by the same Cabinet. For now, they remain decently independent, but the minute politicians realize they can help themselves stay in power and influence public opinion through the CRTC, you can bet more partisan appointments will follow. Even if you think the current Prime Minister will not abuse these powers, do you trust their successor? Or their successor's successor? If you trust Trudeau, will you trust O'Toole? And if you trust O'Toole, will you trust Singh? Or Bernier? Or anybody else after the fact? For those Americans watching, if you trusted Obama, would you have trusted Trump? And if you trusted Trump, do you also trust Biden? The only way to ensure Canadian social media remain free from government manipulation is not to give the power to anyone to manipulate it in the first place, no matter how pretty their smile is.